Good morning. Grab your coffee, tea, or whatever you like to drink, and I thought we would have some girl talk again. And I'm going to talk about getting divorced, dating, and just some other random things while we do our makeup. I feel super tired today, and I feel like my eyes are really red, so I'm going to do something that I pretty much never do, is put these little eye drops in. By the way, if you like to use these Lumify eye drops, I did ask my eye doctor, and he said they're fine once in a blue moon, but he said if you're using them like every single day or even like Visine, he said no, don't do that. But every now and then, you know, for photos or, you know, just whatever, if you had a rough night and your eyes are super red and yellow and just not bright, this makes the whites of your eyes really, really bright white. I don't like it that much. I just like what it makes my eyes look like, but I never used to like it because it makes my eyes feel, oops, let me silence my phone. It makes my eyes feel a little weird. So let's just zoom in a little bit and get started. I have 3 beautiful, weird pimples. They're like, not really pimples, they're just like red and they kind of hurt, like kind of cystic underneath the skin. Usually when I get them like this, they will fade away and they don't turn into like a weird pimple. I just put like my little pimple patches on them. But it's because I've been testing a bunch of new blushes. So obviously I get them right here and I have a couple here. So I know it's from blush. So we're gonna use a different blush today. Hopefully this new blush that I'm gonna use today doesn't do that. I have a hard time of telling a story or talking at the same time where I'm, you know, and this is this, this is this. It's hard for me to do that sometimes. So if I use something and I forget to say what I'm using, just look down below this video, click on that more or show more button. And underneath, I have everything. I type it all out, every link, every product shade usually. And if there's any sales or anything like that, I will link those down below. But anyways, I've already done my sunscreen. I used my Isden. This is the tinted one. I really like this, and it never ever breaks me out. And then I had bought this the other day, the one from Dr. Idris. I don't like it. It did have a lot of bad reviews, but I like some of her other products, so I was like, I have to try it. I put it on my neck today. Oh, actually, it's still greasy. It's so greasy. My poor necklace is sticking. It's sticking on it, but yeah, it's quite greasy. So maybe if, and I also did put some on my hands, so I will use it up on my hands and my neck and chest. I like the ingredients, and it also has, I think, resorcinol, or maybe it's the hexyl resorcinol, which is another good ingredient if you have hyperpigmentation or melasma. But for me, I would rather use a sunscreen that's not greasy like this and just have my skincare have the proper ingredients. But you know, like I said, the ingredients are nice, it's just way too greasy for me. And I have not cleaned my makeup brushes, and I don't like to use dirty brushes, so I just grabbed some other ones that I don't always use. They're clean ones. I don't often use these, so I'm gonna see if I can make my makeup work with different brushes today. Just putting on my all-time favorite Holy Grail, my Naked Sundays Beauty Screen. I wear shade 2.5. This is basically just a tinted sunscreen, but it has a decent amount of coverage. I'd say like kind of light to medium coverage. It's not gonna fully cover these red pimple things on me, but it'll do a good enough job. If you don't wanna put other sunscreen on first, if you don't wanna put something like this on or whatever your favorite is first, I mean, as you can see, this is more than enough sunscreen for my face. However, since I don't just kind of press it in with my fingers and I do use a brush and a sponge, I'm kind of removing a lot of it. So I like to do double sunscreen, and then of course my Holy Grail sunscreen makeup. We're gonna try this clean brush from Merit. This brush works really nicely with their stick foundation, which is nice, but I prefer makeup, you know, most of my makeup to have extra sunscreen in it. It's a nice brush. It's a nice quality brush. I normally use my favorite BK Beauty brush. See, so as I blend it, it doesn't fully cover these little marks, but we'll cover it here in a minute. So, all right, let's just have some girl chat. I was just thinking of some things that, you know, we could chat about. And of course, I always love to hear from you all. So leave me your comments, questions, concerns, whatever in the comment section down below. And also, you know, if you guys read comments and you see somebody else's comment that perhaps you have something in common with, feel free to have conversation in my comment section with one another. People make friends that way, meeting people online on social media. So this is kind of just like a safe girl channel where we can just talk about all women things. I'm just gonna put a little green color corrector on these. The green can help combat the redness. I'm I'm just gonna kind of let that set and do its thing while I do my eyes. So let's talk about divorce and dating. I'm currently married now, but I have been divorced. I made some really stupid choices when I was younger. I mean, haven't we all? I'm 53 years old, so golly, if I haven't made some stupid choices in my life, then, you know, I guess you haven't lived. You don't gain that much wisdom, I guess, if you don't make some really stupid choices in life and learn from them. But this is just the Anastasia, the eyeshadow primer. I haven't used this in ages, but I forgot I need to use the teeniest amount because it is so full coverage. If you have a lot of redness or veins or whatever on your eyes, this might be a good primer for you. So I thought I would just kind of give, you know, some girl advice if anyone out there is divorced and is in the dating scene or whatever, and I'll just share how my husband and I met and, you know, some of the silly things that I did and dumb decisions I did, and hopefully, you know, that can kind of help if you are looking for any wisdom, I guess. So I was divorced, and I've been divorced more than once, actually. Like I said, I just did some really stupid things when I was younger. And the funny thing is I really never got to even live with my spouse until, of course, now I live with the husband I'm with now. But I never even got to live with them because I was in the military. I was active duty Air Force, and just using this Morphe eyeshadow palette. I was active duty Air Force, and the military just made it very, very difficult to have a marriage, have a healthy marriage, because, you know, if they deployed one of us, I was deployed over in Croatia for 6 months, living in a tent, and worked with, you know, the medical unit there and the United Nations, and it just made it really difficult to have a normal relationship. Unless you were probably already married going into the military, but I was 20 when I joined the Air Force, and I did 11 years active duty, but then I had this neck injury, so I had to get out, and I can talk about my neck in a different video. So then I guess I gained a little bit of wisdom and when I was finally divorced, and I got so busy. This is when I became a civilian. I was medically discharged from the military, and I lived in Florida, and I don't like this eyeshadow primer with this eyeshadow palette, but whatever, we'll make it work. So I was a civilian, and I decided to work in real estate. Even though my background was medical, I was an EMT and nursing instructor, I physically was not able to do that type of work. Obviously, that's why I had to get out of the military. So I became a real estate agent, a realtor in Florida. And this was when the short sale and foreclosure market was booming. So I'm very thankful I had found somebody who kind of took me under their wings and taught me everything. And because I did, you know, I did quite well in that market, I was able to help a lot of people not ruin their credit and do, you know, short sales on their home. Too bad I wasn't in a town where the cost of the homes were like millions of dollars when I, you know, lived in South Florida. I did it in a town that, you know, was a smaller town. And the average cost of a home back then was, you know, $100,000, $200,000. So, of course, imagine commission if you were selling multi-million dollar homes. I probably would have had to sell just one home a year, but I actually, sometimes I'd have anywhere from 25 to 30 short sales going on at one time, and I did them all myself. Sometimes I'd have 5 closings a month, sometimes 10, sometimes 12. It just, you know, it just would depend. And that's the one thing when you're self-employed, you know, commissions and things like that fluctuate. I'm just not liking this palette. Let me pull out one of my other ones. Do not like it with this white Anastasia primer. Not for me, but I love that Morphe palette, just not with that primer. So I'm gonna use my all-time favorite, my Kosas eyeshadow palette, because this has more warm shades. So I need to try to tone down this white primer because the primer's making it look too gray. So anyways, I ended up just getting super, super into my work in real estate, because I don't know if you know anything about a short sale or if you know anyone who's ever done one. They are so time consuming. I think that's where all my gray hair came from. I did very well. Like, I had realtors all the time asking if I would do their short sale for them, which of course I was not gonna do them for free because they're so time consuming. And then some people would just hire companies, but I actually did the actual short sales, and I'd even help people modify their loans, things like that, for free. I would do that for free just to help them, but I did whatever I could do to try to help people save their home. So I was so busy. Some days I would work, I had multiple cell phones, that's how busy I was, and I would work usually, like, I'd get like 2 to 3 hours of sleep a night. That's how busy I was. And of course, you know, 10, 15, 20 years ago, I was younger and able to do that in real estate. So now that I had been divorced and I was a civilian and I was out of the military, I just pretty much made real estate my spouse. And of course I got, really involved in our church as well. And so to me, my life was great. It was wonderful. It was happy, no drama. And I wasn't dating or anything because I was over it. And again, since I kind of made those silly mistakes, which like I said, I've learned from them. So I don't regret any of the dumb life choices I've made. But I just felt like, you know what, been there, done that. And at that point, I just did not want to deal with dating or anything. I just enjoyed the way my life was and focusing on my work and church and serving the community and things like that. And I never felt lonely because I had my dog. I had a Chinese Shar Pei at the time. His name was Amos. He lived 16 years, so he's no longer with us. And then I ended up also getting a puggle. I named him Leroy, and he was like the best little dog ever. So for me, I just felt so complete. Like, instead of being the cat lady, I was like the dog lady. And I just, Friday nights were so exciting to me because I'd watch QVC, Friday Night Beauty, I'd order a pizza, and that's when I would take a break from real estate. And I just really enjoyed my life. And then some of my friends from church, we would go to the gym, we had a trainer, and I just really had a fun, enjoyable life for a good 8-10 years. I did not want to date. One day my friend was like, you're in your 30s and what are you gonna do? Are you gonna spend the rest of your life single? And someday you're gonna wanna settle down. And like I said, I was never lonely. I was alone, I was by myself, but I never felt lonely, like where I was just longing to have somebody. And I guess because my experiences when I was married before, because I made silly choices, so I'm not blaming my exes. Well, no, I am blaming them for some things, but I look at it as I knew better. I knew not to marry them, but I still did it anyways because I just, had a bad idea of what love was back then. Anyways, one day my friend's like, listen, the only place you go other than seeing clients, which I would never date any of my clients, and that's just a no-no to me. But my friend said, unless you meet somebody in the grocery store or it's your UPS delivery person, he's like, you're gonna stay single for the rest of your life. And so I had never even thought of it that way. Because I wasn't looking. So anywho, I decided back then, this was what, 15, I was 38 or 39, I'm 53 now. And so I decided to get on Christian Mingle because back then it was fairly, safe. And I wouldn't really advise anybody to get on there now because from what I've heard, like, it's just, people are getting scammed. Somebody's really lonely and then they think the other person really is into them and they end up getting catfished and all that. So I don't know. I would be cautious if you get on any of those dating sites. And I definitely would never do, if I were single now, I would never do like Tinder and any of that nonsense. I don't know, dating nowadays might be difficult. Or perhaps finding somebody in church. A funny story though, I did date a couple guys in our church, and I remember the pastor was like, listen, ladies, if the men are standing outside the bathroom, the ladies' bathroom, get away from them. They're sharks. They're coming to church just so they can follow, watch these women who might be by themselves and not have a husband. And sure enough, stupid me, back then, a couple guys I dated, that's how they introduced themselves. I was walking out of the ladies' bathroom and they're like, hey, one of my girlfriend, we laugh all the time at this one guy who like literally chased me out of the church, and I was in my heels walking as fast as I could. And of course he stopped me. But then, silly me, started dating him and he turned out to be a weirdo. So be cautious, even at your church, sharks and people who are praying for women who are by themselves are usually hanging out and watching the women by the women's bathroom. So I got on Christian Mingle and I met a couple guys on there. Now I'm the type of woman that back in the day I was obsessed with LL Cool J. I don't even follow him or anything now, but I was in love with him and I was like, man, if he ever approached me, then I would give him the time of day. This was me making, up silly stories. But I was like, but of course, I don't care who it is. I would never approach a man. I was very I'm very old-fashioned when it comes to that, but also I would never ask a guy out. That's just not my style. And my brother, he's told me, like, back in the day, he would have girls always approach him and ask him out. And I'm like, ew, they did? Like, how weird. That's just not my thing. Not that I'm too good for it. It's just, I don't know. I feel very old-fashioned where I feel like the man should be the one, you know, approaching the lady. But, you know, I know times have changed. And LL is not my TV crush or whatever anymore. I don't know why I thought he was so cute. And then now I think Gerard Butler, I love him. My husband even, I mean, I never like talk about him in front of my husband, but one day I said something like, wow, you know, he's cute. And my husband, as a joke, tried to get me a pillow with Gerard Butler on it once. We laughed so hard. And then, who's the other one? We just watched Yellowstone, the whole series. We rented it on Paramount. We only had to pay like $12 for the whole month. And then we binge watch every single Yellowstone episode. And what's his name? Rip Cole Hauser or something. Do you guys know who I'm talking about? And so every time he comes on, my husband is like, your boy's on TV. So anyways, I'm very respectful with my husband about that. We don't, you know, I'm not the jealous type either. Like if I see a pretty girl walking, I'll be like, oh, she's pretty, she looks good, do you think she's cute? And my husband's like, yeah, you know, she's pretty. And if I see somebody really pretty, of course, I guess it's more acceptable if a girl, if we check each other out and we're like, oh, your hair's so pretty or whatever, but that would, you know, be obviously strange if my husband said, oh, you're really pretty. It would probably make the lady feel uncomfortable. But I'm not that jealous type. How are you guys with that? Like I said, we're very respectful. My husband doesn't, you know, I don't walk around and see a guy and be like, oh, he fine. You know, I would never do that in front of my husband, and vice versa. He doesn't do that in front of me. But there's a big difference with looking and admiring somebody's beauty, and then a difference between lusting after them and being disrespectful, obviously. All right, so back to Christian Mingle. So a couple guys, I did not swipe or tap on them or whatever. I would have men that would, you know, click, I forget how they do. They click a heart or they say something, and then sometimes I would reply. I figured if the good Lord wants me to meet somebody, then the right person will come my way. And I never went out on a date with anyone except for one person who is now my husband. But I did talk to like 2 different guys, that was it. And I did have more guys that would try to reach out. The nice thing was I was able to look at their profile first. And if I saw, you know, their pictures, they were, like, for example, if they, oh, I gotta keep doing this, because this brow glue, I mean, your brows will, this is like high maintenance. Your brows will stay stuck in that position, so you have to work quickly. I didn't like it at first, but now I actually like it as long as I work super, super quickly. So I would look at guys' profile pictures and all their pictures that they had uploaded, and if they had any pictures like standing in front of a mirror with only a towel wrapped around their waist, I was like, ooh, no, that's gross. Like, why are you posting that picture? And then if I would see a guy, like if he was drinking, like if he showed pictures of him in a club or with a bunch of friends and they had alcohol and stuff, and he appeared to be like that type of a partier, drinker all the time, I was like, nope, not interested. That was kind of like the beauty of finding somebody on one of those sites, because it was almost like a resume. Like I could look at everybody's resume and decide if I even wanted to waste my time, because at that time in my life, I was what, 38 or 39, and I wasn't looking to just go on dates and bore myself with that. It was like, if I'm gonna find somebody, I'm gonna find my life partner. So why am I gonna waste my time when I was a busy woman? Why am I gonna waste my time with somebody that I know from the get-go that I would never spend my life with? Like I can go hang out with a girlfriend if I, you know, really wanted to have someone to go do something with. So I'm a Christian, and if somebody put in their profile things about like how they lean to the universe or their God is somebody different than my God, and if they don't believe in Jesus, you know, I guess Christian Mingle, you would think that it would be people that you'd be equally yoked with, but you still have to, I guess, vet people to make sure that that's something that you're equally yoked with. So, for example, I met this really nice Muslim on a cruise ship, not like to date, but he really loved me and my husband, and we would chat, and he was telling me how he met a lady who was not Muslim, and he said he realized that, you know, he should have been with somebody that he was equally yoked with which, you know, they had the same beliefs. And so I agree with that. So no matter what your religion is, no matter what you believe, I think that you will run in, or could run into, many issues in life if, for example, a lot of Christian women will date men that don't believe in Jesus at all, but they think, oh, I can change him. And, you know, perhaps you can set an example, but only the good Lord's going to be able to change somebody, and then they have to want to change. Especially when you're an older woman, not, I mean, 30s isn't old, but you know what I mean. We're not like 18, 19. But especially when you've been there, done that, you've been married, maybe you already have kids. When you're searching for your future husband, why date somebody that, or maybe they don't have a job. I'm not saying there's anything wrong if a guy doesn't have a job, but if he's broke as a joke and he is robbing Peter to pay Paul and he can't even pay his own electric bill, why is he out there, you know, trying to date? I'm not saying that having financial issues makes the person a bad person, but do you want to get involved with somebody who, when you meet them, they're like, I'm just not working right now, but they sit at home and they play video games all day long? Like, what kind of future do you think that you will have with that? So I was very, very, very selective of that. But if the man that, you know, you're choosing to be with, he doesn't even have a house or a nice apartment, but yet his car is like, has brand new rims and a new stereo system. And, you know, my pastor used to always say, if he's renting a rim, but yet he can't pay his other bills, like, just think about what your future might be with someone like that. For me, I wanted somebody that was responsible. They didn't have to be a millionaire or anything like that. In fact, when I met my husband, he was a firefighter, and I had no idea he had the money that he had. I thought, you know, he made like $30,000 a year. I didn't know. I thought firefighters didn't make that much money. And I was okay with it because he was very responsible. And I wasn't out for money, even though I was making decent money myself. But I wanted somebody not only spiritually that I was equally yoked with, but also our morals and values, how we handle finances, how we handle arguments, things like that. You want to be with somebody who obviously you're going to be equal with. So one of the guys that had reached out to me, he seemed really nice. He was a Christian. He did a lot of work with his church. They went to different countries and did things for, you know, just to help out communities in different countries. Also, I would never give anybody my real name. I would never give anybody my full name. Nobody ever asked. They just assumed my name was Sally, because for my profile name, I used my name Sherry, my dog Amos, and my dog Leroy. So I did S-A-L was my profile name, and then, I don't know, some numbers or something. So they all just kept calling me Sally, and I was like, okay, whatever. Unless they ask me what my actual name is, I'm not gonna tell them. And then I never gave out my phone number, my real email, because you could email each other in that app, because I just didn't want to have a stalker if it turned out to be bad. So they just would email me through the app. You know, a lot of them were like, well, let's meet up, or give me your phone number. But I was like, no, let's just keep talking through this. But I could figure out really quickly. I mean, people can hide who they are for a little bit online through emails and things like that. Of course, I would really pray for discernment. Eventually, I feel like the good Lord would tell me, like, whoa, back up, don't talk to this person. Or I could instantly tell, like, he's got a quality that I can tell this will be an issue. But so one of the guys, the one who on paper appeared to be this wonderful Christian guy, he was in the middle of a divorce with his wife, and he also was not allowed to be around his two daughters. And he didn't tell me why. And he got kind of like rude in the email and was like, and if you want to know why, then he said, I've already been forgiven for what I've done to my daughters. And he said, and if you press me and if you want to know the details, then clearly you're not the woman of God that I thought you were. And that right there was enough for me to be like, okay, he's not going to be the one for me, because first of all, yeah, I am nosy and I wanted to know, but I wasn't pressing him. But the fact that he let me know that he can't even be around his daughters made me think that he did something that, you know, that's between him and the Lord. If he asked for forgiveness and was forgiven, but I don't want to be around somebody who perhaps did something that I was thinking that maybe he did to them. So I at that point, I didn't even want to know. And I was like, yeah, sure, okay, well, hope you have a nice life, or whatever. I don't know what I said. That's the good thing. I didn't have to waste time going on a date with him. He didn't have my phone number. He didn't know where I lived. None of that. I was able to figure out fairly quickly that, okay, this was not the guy. Even though on paper he looked good, but the more we started chatting about things, the real him started to come out. I felt like the Lord really started revealing to me, you know, avoid him. But you know what? When I was a lot younger, who knows? Maybe I would have done something silly and made a dumb decision and been like, okay, I'll just take his word for it and then date him, and then who knows what my life would be like. So I am thankful that I've gone through all of those things. I'm just gonna use some of my Aven. This is my favorite tinted SPF compact. This actually works as a great concealer. This is a brand new one. I love this so much. See, it's just like a nice cream. And this is the shade Beige. Let me just show you how nicely this will cover up pimples. This is a full coverage product. And then I just use a little sponge and kind of press it on. I usually wear hats when I'm out and about, so I'm not gonna put too much on my forehead, just a little bit, because I am gonna put a hat on when I'm done filming. But right around here is where I have a lot of melasma, and it's like trying to spread a little bit right here. So I keep this in my purse to make sure not only am I adding extra sun protection throughout the day, but it helps to cover up that melasma some. And the only other guy that I talked to on there, like I said, other guys would reach out, but when I would look at their profile photos or in their description, like I said, if somebody said they lean to the universe or, you know, stuff like that, that's just, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with you if that's what you believe in. That's just, why date somebody that you have completely different beliefs? So no matter what your religion is, no matter what your beliefs are, just try to date somebody that has the same beliefs as you. I know from the past, when you try to merge two separate beliefs, religions, all of that, it's very difficult. Like, you're always at this constant battle. Say you meet somebody at a bar or club or whatever, you're not able to really know what their resume is all about in meeting them. And now you're gonna waste time going out to dinner with them, going out to dates, and just, to me, that's just, I don't even want to go on one date with somebody if I know they potentially would not be my future partner. It's just, to me, it's just, that was a waste to me. All right, let me just set this with this powder. And my powder puffs are dirty, so I'm gonna just try to do this with my clean sponge. This is a brand new sponge that I got out. So then another guy that I talked to, only like via email, he had gone through a divorce already, but I don't feel like he really had any business being on a dating site at that time, because he was so depressed. And I'm like, now I don't show my real personality here on social media, because I honestly am just like a 16-year-old boy. I'm giggling about everything. Stupid things make me laugh, like poop, stuff like that. Like anything like that, I'm always giggling. I'm prior military and medical, so of course I have a crazy sense of humor. Things that make me laugh might not make you laugh, but I love stupid humor, stupid jokes. I don't like comedy things where there's a lot of cussing, and not that I've, you know, never cussed or whatever in my life, but that's just not my vibe. Like, I feel like movies, it'll be a great movie and then they say GD in the movie, and it's like, why? Why? They just ruin the whole movie for me. So I would rather just have clean, no cussing. It's just, that's just me. I'm not saying that you have to be like that. But for me, I'm joking all the time. I'm always laughing. Like, if you are ever around me, I'm always giggling about something, because I just feel like life is so much better when you find the joy and the humor in it. So this other guy, I felt bad for him, but he was just like so not my vibe. On paper, his profile, everything, his photos, he was nice. He was a dentist, actually. And he had reached out to me. And so on paper, everything looked great. But when we finally would email back and forth, there was just like this dark vibe about him, of like depression. And, you know, I felt bad for the guy, but it was like, listen, I'm not trying to be a counselor. Like, if I'm trying to date someone, I need somebody who's already complete, already whole, already healed. Now, I'm not saying that we can't have a little bit of baggage or a little bit of issues that we're still working through. But I just felt like this guy was just so negative, and he just kept talking about how he was so hurt from what his wife had done to him. She cheated on him, I guess, and which I think is terrible. But again, you know, if I was gonna get back in the dating game to find my future forever, I just didn't want somebody that still had a lot of healing to do. And that's, you know, honestly, that's the mistakes that I made when I was younger, was I had no business getting married because I didn't have it all together myself. Now, granted, you know, the person that I was with was a hot mess himself, but I can't judge and be like, oh, he was terrible, when really, what was I offering? You know, I still had all my baggage and issues myself. So that's another reason that I think that staying single, and if you are a Christian, getting in the Word, finding a good church, getting involved, and healing on your own, not relying on other people to help you to heal. And nothing wrong with going to doctors, things like that, if you need that help psychologically. But a lot of times for me, the best doctor for me is the Lord. And I love to read a lot of different Christian books, self-healing books, things like that. I used to read them, but I still didn't go away from what the actual Bible said, because you still always have to reference and make sure what you're reading in these feel-good self-help books is what the Word says. And that's just for me as a Christian. Again, I'm not trying to tell you that's what you have to do. For example, if you are not where you want to be emotionally in life, maybe you're still dealing with a lot of baggage from whatever in life. You know, we all go through stuff. We all have, you know, maybe we had issues in our childhood, things like that. If you don't feel like you could be a good wife to somebody because you're still working on yourself, why not just wait until you feel like you are, you know, a great catch or whatever. So that's another reason I stayed single for 8-10 years, because I knew I wasn't a great catch at that time. I knew I wanted to be selfish. At that time, I wanted to focus on work and making money. I wanted to just enjoy my freedom. I wanted to just really spend time with me and the Lord and my dogs and just enjoy my life until I felt like I was ready. And also until I knew that I wasn't going to make stupid decisions. Because I don't know if you've ever read the book, if you guys know who Juanita Bynum is, she has a book called No More Sheets. And if you are a woman and you are struggling, I'll see if I can find it. Maybe they have it on Amazon and I'll link it down below. But if you're a woman and you're struggling with, you know, maybe you're being promiscuous. I mean, listen, if that's what you want to do, that's your business. But if you feel inside like, why am I doing this? Like if you feel like that's what giving the man is going to make him love you. You know, my mom used to say, why would a man buy the cow if the milk is free? And in my mind, that is true. Now, I know a lot of people feel like, well, you got to test it out, test the car before you buy it. That's your business if that's what you feel. And I'm not saying that I didn't do some stupid things when I was younger. But if you're a woman, and I don't know if this is speaking to you, and you feel like you're giving things to a man or men, and you don't feel good about it, and you realize like, you know what am I doing? I know I'm better than this, and why do I feel like if I don't give myself to them that I'm not quality or whatever. Whatever it is that you're feeling, read the book from Juanita Bynum. It's called No More Sheets. It is such an eye-opening book, and I think that it will really speak to you and let you realize what your value is. And that's one thing that she said. This is, you know, when I was younger and making really dumb decisions. And she said, she said something like, when she walks in a room, now granted, I feel like the Lord did make men more physical. Like, you know, men see women, they look at the physical features. And of course, I think women, we still look at physical features in a man, but you know, we're more like, we want somebody that's honest, that's gonna protect us, provide, and all that. That's not like one of the things that men look for. They instantly look at, you know, physical stuff. She had said, I don't want a man that if I walk in the room, she said, I don't want a man that wants to be with me just because he's lusting for me. So that's why she was saying, you know, she watches what she wears. She's not trying to wear something super low cut because she doesn't want the men to instantly see her and then think of the physical. She wants somebody to fall in love with her for who she is. It made me really think, because one time, I'm gonna get back to the dating here in a second. But one time I remember, you know, I don't really wear, so this is probably as low as I'll wear a top. And, you know, or usually I'll wear them up here just because I'm trying to keep the sun off of my chest. But I used to wear, back then I didn't have such big boobs. I was like a 32B, and now I'm like a 32H. I hate it. I was in church one day, and I would go to church and then I would go show homes, or I would go list houses and stuff right afterwards. So I would have my outfit on, all my clothes on, and I always wore high heels and all that. And I had on this, it was just a basic black sweater, but I'll never forget, I was in my early 30s, and I had on a basic black sweater, but it was low cut and there was some cleavage there. And even though I was, you know, smaller chested, it was still, I feel like, kind of revealing and kind of like, why was I showing that in church? That's why you'll never see me wearing like super sexy stuff out and about. Just now, I will with my husband or whatever, but I feel like on camera or out and about, I got so convicted after this moment that happened to me. So I was talking to the pastor after church and we were just chatting about something, and I noticed his eyes kept like going, like looking down, and it was like he was probably telling himself, don't look, don't look, don't look. But I noticed his eyes kept going to my chest. And it was at that moment that I felt so convicted, because I was like, because of how I'm dressed, I'm like forcing this poor guy to look down at my cleavage. And sure, he could have just kept eye contact or whatever, but I mean, come on, we're all human, and just because someone's a pastor, they're not Jesus. So we all sin, we all make mistakes, but it was me. I was the one who was encouraging him. If I had something up to here, I mean, could he have been looking at my chest? Sure, he could have, but why was I trying to like put it out there like that? And so for me, I'm not saying that you shouldn't dress however you ladies want, but for me, that's what made me finally decide, like, you know what, maybe I won't be revealing things so much like that. Because I felt kind of guilty that day, to be honest. And that was, I know that was just the Lord convicting me. And so from that day on, I really tried to work on just not, why do I need to show the goods, you know, to strangers? And it's like, was I just being insecure? Which probably that's what it was. It was probably to me an insecurity. And since I had a nice figure and I was nice and skinny back then, I'm not skinny now at all. But regardless of what your shape is or whatever, as ladies, like, unless that's just your favorite way to dress, but you have to ask yourself, are you dressing that way because of insecurities and it makes you feel good when people gawk at you? Or are you just dressing that way because you know, if you just do it because that's how you love to dress, that's, you know, then go for it. But I think for me back then, since I was by myself and all that, it's like maybe inside I wanted to make sure like I knew I still had it going on, you know, like people would check me out. The guys would always check me out. And it's like now I don't pay attention to that now, because obviously I'm only have eyes for one man. But I feel like as women, you know, the older we get, the more we mature. But if you're like spending time in bars and clubs and that's where you think you're gonna find your next man, or if you're just out and about always dressing very revealing, not because that's your style, but because you're hoping that a man is gonna wanna talk to you, because, you know, maybe you're insecure the way I used to be. Is that what we really want to do? Like, if I was single, I don't want to attract men based on sexual stuff. You know, of course they're going to look at your physical appearance. We all do. Does that make sense? If, you know, maybe you're feeling the way I used to back then. And look at a lot of women, classy women that you see online or in churches or whatever. A lot of them, they look gorgeous, they look beautiful, but if you notice, they're wearing things that come up to here. They're not wearing skin tight pants. They're not wearing things that reveal every little nook and cranny, like those yoga pants or those tight stretchy pants that women wear that they go up into their booty. You can see everything. I mean, if that's what you got to do if you're going to Pilates or yoga, that's fine. But I see people like on the cruise ships, in the airport, wearing that, and you can see everything. Like, I'm talking from the front, from the back, I can see the shape of every body part. And now, if that's just what they love, great, but are they doing it because they want people to look? I'm gonna look, and I'm like, inside my head, I'm thinking, oh, if only the old me, you know, could sit down and have a talk with her. And, you know, I don't know, I feel bad when I see women sometimes dressing like that perhaps they're doing it because they're insecure, because that's the stuff that I used to do. So I'm just saying, you know your value, ladies. You are beautiful, you are worth it. You don't have to show all the goods. You don't have to give up the milk for free. You don't have to do all of that, because you have so much value. So if you learn and you realize how beautiful you are inside and out, it takes time. I will say it didn't happen for me. I wasn't born knowing my value. Sometimes it takes time. So whether you have to get in a good friend group or see a doctor or a counselor, a pastor, or start reading the Bible or reading just some self-help books, whatever your spiritual beliefs are, whatever, something that will help you to really know your value, to heal from past wounds and things that have happened. And granted, I know that it's not that easy, because I know some people, you know, with grief, things like that, we probably will carry that for the rest of our lives. But hopefully me explaining that, because I'm not better than anyone. I mean, golly, if I really told you all the stupid things I did, you'd be like, what? You're still alive to tell what has happened, and you went through all of that? Like, trust me, I'm not better than anyone. I have done some really silly things. And speaking of my husband, I'm gonna tell the story of how we met, but he just now walked in. I should probably let him tell the story of how we met, and it's not a true story, by the way, but this is a story that he always tells. Tell the story of, I haven't gotten to how I just said we met on Christian Mingle. I just told about the 2 other guys that tried to talk. Not that there's ever been anybody before you.
There's never been another person.
No. But I just told the story of the 2 other guys that I met that online. I didn't physically go talk to them. How did you find me on Christian Mingle? Did I reach out to you, or did you reach out to me?
Absolutely, you reached out to me.
Tell the truth. What made you reach out to me?
Well, I saw a picture of her, and she was leaning like this on a cruise ship rail, and I said, that's it. Where am I supposed to be looking at?
Looking here, but I'm looking at you. Yeah, look in here.
Okay. You were beautiful, honey. And you were intelligent, and you were awesome, and you were...
Was I dressed like a skank, or how was I dressed?
A skank.
I told the story about how in front of the pastor that time I had the low-cut shirt, and remember I said I felt so convicted. This was before him, by the way.
Right. There is no before him.
There is no before him. Okay, but as a man, what made you decide you wanted to date me?
The biggest reason for me, being a Christian. And I had just finished raising 2 children, and I wasn't in the mood to start all over again. So the fact that she was single, no children, gorgeous, intelligent, loves to cruise, I figure that's the one for me.
Okay.
So ever since then, all I do is shop, clean, do the dishes, laundry, and they still call me a lazy man.
No, he is the best, by the way.
I'm gonna throw away the eggs.
I'm gonna tell you guys the story here in a minute of how we actually met. I'm gonna change out my battery, and then I'll tell you that actual story. I'm not gonna let him tell the story of how we actually met, because he completely fabricates the story, and I think he can't remember what really happened. So I'll tell you that here in a minute. For my blush, I wanna try, I've had these for a while, but I was organizing some stuff that I'm gonna do for a declutter video. And I remember I loved how these looked on, but there's an ingredient called Laurel Lysine. It's like, I don't know, midway down. And that's one ingredient that I do usually avoid in makeup products. Even though it makes it look smooth and pretty, sometimes that can trigger acne for me. So don't ask why I'm gonna put it over top of these 3 things growing, but there's this shade, okay? And these are really, like, if you have big pores and you want just like a matte blush that's just gonna soften and blur your skin, and if you're not acne prone, these are actually beautiful. These are from Tower 28. It's pretty. This is like a skin, like a neutrally peach. But this pink, ooh, that's so pretty. That's probably too bright by itself. You know what, we're just gonna do this one and see. So how me and my husband met on Christian Mingle, he reached out to me, of course. This brush is not working for this. I'll use this cheap Wet n Wild brush. It's a bigger one. So he reached out to me on Christian Mingle. Of course, I looked through all his photos, I read his profile, and you know, I just had like a really good feeling about him when he reached out. I'll blend this a little bit better here in a minute. This one right here, it's a kind of a lumpier one, and it kind of hurts. I hope it doesn't turn into a bigger pimple, but I'm gonna use my Kosas concealer, and I prepped my under eyes really well. I put a little of my Coffee Eye Lift Serum earlier. This is the only concealer that I'll actually wipe under my eyes. Everything else I put on my hand first and then apply it, but since this isn't so thick and heavy, I'm able to do this. So that was one requirement. I've never had children. I've never been pregnant. And you know, when I was younger, I used to be upset about that, but now that I'm 53, I'm thankful that I never had children. But you know, some people, that's their life. Children are their life, and I think that's awesome. I like people's kids as long as I don't have to be around them all the time. I know that sounds horrible, but I think when you're my age and you never had children, that's just how it is. I do like being around people's kids that are well behaved. So anyways, that was a big deal for me, that the guy that I met, now this might not be a deal breaker or, you know, a want from you, But for me, when I was 38 or 39 years old, I did not want to deal with like baby mama drama, none of that. Not to say that it would be a bad thing, but for me, I just didn't want to deal with it. So I felt like unless their kid was like 18 or older, that was just a deal breaker for me. Now, I don't think I put it on there saying you can't have kids or whatever, because I didn't want anybody to be dishonest about it. But so anyways, he didn't have kids. Now, like he had mentioned, he had raised 2 kids because he was married before as well. He raised 2 kids they had a different father, but he did not have any children. So everything was perfect with me and him. Now, one thing I almost didn't accept his invite or whatever, because he had one photo where it appeared that they were drinking. And again, I do drink once in a blue moon. I can't drink hardly much now because menopause. Like if I drink, I just know that I'm gonna have the worst sleep ever. So for me now, I just really don't drink. We drank on my birthday. We did like a wine tasting, but for me, I realize I feel better without alcohol and my skin looks better. So nothing against someone that drinks, but I wanted to make sure they weren't someone that's like going to the club tonight with the guys and drinking. I'm gonna try a little of this brighter pink blush over top. This one. But he had one photo where him and some of his friends from high school, it looked like they had some drinks, but that just happened to be like a once in a blue moon thing where they were all hanging out. So that was probably the good Lord letting me know, like, it's okay. You could talk to him. That's why I said it's nice, because you can pretty much, it's like a online interview and you don't have to waste any of your time. But my husband was the only person that not only did I email him through their site, but then I ended up giving him my actual email, and then I gave him my phone number. But it was probably after a month of us emailing back and forth, and he had messaged me and he said, hey, here's my phone number, why don't you give me a call? And I was thinking to myself, I have never called a guy in my entire life, unless I'm already with them. But I just said, no, that's okay, but I'll give you my number if you want to reach out, because I don't know, I'm just such a weirdo about, I just have never pursued a guy. And I know that he and I were already chatting, but I was like, I'm not gonna call him. Like, if it's meant to be, he'll call me and, he'll be the one to pursue me initially. So I gave him my number, and of course he did call, and we just hit it off, started talking all the time. And then it was probably, let me just line my lips real quick and then I'll finish telling the story. Gosh, I love this stuff. This is like $4, Wet n Wild. So much better than the Huda lip contour stains. These last forever. The only problem is it only comes in 3 shades. This is the shade Nude Tights. I love it. For my lips, I'm gonna use this new one from Too Faced. This is, I think it's the shade Berry. I think it's so pretty. It's kind of purpley, but I think it's really pretty. And you don't have to put hardly any on. I mean, you could, I'll show you. It's more purpley, it's bright, but I'm gonna blot my lips here in a few. It will stain my lips, and then I can just put like a clear gloss over it. So my current husband and I now, we would talk on the phone almost like every night, and he was very respectful. That was something I liked. He was a firefighter captain. I just liked those manly vibes that he had. And he was just really down to earth. I liked that he liked to fix things and travel, and he seemed like a very, very honest person, but he was funny. And so back to what I was saying about that one dentist that I talked to that was just always sad and depressed. It was like, okay, I want to giggle and laugh all the time, and that dentist just wasn't the one for me. But the husband that I'm with now, like, we're always joking, always laughing about something stupid. And, if we're around other people, they'll probably be like, what is wrong with you two? Because he's my best friend. We're always giggling about something, telling jokes. I can be myself around him. That's the other thing I love. When I was married before, I feel like I wasn't me. And plus I think because I just didn't know me. Like I said, I was a mess when I was younger. But now I feel like not only my husband and I are equally yoked, not just spiritually and everything else in our lives, but we just have so much in common. And he even had a Chinese Shar-Pei also, which is so rare. If you know, not many people have Chinese Shar-Peis. The dog I had, Amos. We just have so much in common. And so most of our conversations, we would do like Bible study together, talk about the Lord. And so for me, that was something I looked for. And, we're not perfect Christians. I mean, who is? But what I loved is that we both were striving to just get more of a relationship with the Lord, and we were willing to do it, you know, together. And I loved how funny he was and goofy funny, and that we were just always joking, but we did not meet up for probably 2 months. He lived in Miami, I lived near Tampa. And our first date was after like 2 to 3 months. Because remember, I said I wanted to make sure I qualified the person first. I did not even want to waste going out to dinner or coffee, whatever, with someone. And so our first meeting up was in Disney. We were going to go to Epcot. See how this stains my lips? It's really pretty. So we were going to go to like Epcot, and we were going to stay the night. And so he said, don't worry, I'll handle all the hotel reservations and all that. And so we stayed at a nice hotel, and when he got the rooms, I told myself, because I said, no, I can get my room. And he's like, no, don't worry, I'll handle it. I'll take care of all that. And so I told myself, if I get there, and if this guy only got us 1 room, thinking that we're gonna share a room, I thought, then I'll know he's not the one for me. Well, everything was perfect. We had a great day, went, hung out, walked around Epcot, and then he got us 2 separate rooms. And he didn't get them next to each other because he also was on the same wavelength that I was, that, you know, we love the Lord, but we're also human, and we didn't want any temptations. So he got us rooms, they were either on separate floors or like a mile down the hall and around a corner, around a bend. So I mean, you had to walk a ways to get to each other's room. And that right there, I was like, check. Like, I had so much respect for him because I thought, wow, this is the kind of guy I want to be with. And he did not try anything. He was a total gentleman. We went and did a little golfing that day. We went to Epcot. We had a nice dinner, and he did not try anything. He didn't, you know, like, he didn't say, hey, are we going to split this check or do I need to pay? It was none of that. He paid for everything, which I never expected that. He just really was such a gentleman, but he did not expect anything. He didn't attempt anything. He didn't insinuate anything. He just was, it was such a great, great night. I knew the fact that he wasn't, like, cause I've dated guys from the church before, back, you know, back in the day. And again, don't be fooled thinking that just because somebody goes to church or just because somebody says that they're a Christian or whatever, that does not make them Jesus. And we're all humans, we're all sinners, and we all deal with temptation. But I've dated guys before that they're all like trying to put on this act, and then you go out with them and then they're like pretending that they're going to be your husband that night. I'm trying to kind of watch what I'm saying just in case anybody's children are kind of running around. So that was one thing that I really appreciated about him, is that he didn't try anything, and I just had so much respect for him from that. I told myself, okay, if the Lord is not at the center of this relationship, at the top of this relationship, it was like, then I don't want it. So my advice for you ladies, if you want my advice, if you're watching, maybe you do, is, you know, take your time to really get to know someone. Don't just go to dinner with them right away. Why even waste a whole dinner or a whole lunch? If you are meeting up with someone, maybe just go have a cup of coffee or something like that with them during the day. Don't go to each other's apartments at night, because that's difficult. Now you're gonna deal with temptation. So don't put yourself in situations where you know you might do something that that you'll regret afterwards. But I know, I get it, in today's world, it can be difficult. Even when I got on Christian Mingle, I did get some emails through the app where men were sending me pictures of you-know-what, and I don't want to see that. Like, I'm sorry, men, but that's not something that women like want photos of. So if this was happening back then when I was in my late 30s, I can only imagine what some of these dating sites, even a Christian Mingle dating site, can be like. And then I knew somebody else that got on one recently, and she kept saying, well, should I keep talking to this guy? And I was like, no, I think he's trying to catfish you. I think he's trying to get too much of your personal information. Something's fishy. But she was so lonely. She was like, well, I'll just keep talking to him. And sure enough, this guy ended up being a total fake and was trying to get personal information, financial information, and there's just so many scams. So I'm not telling you to go do what I did, because nowadays I don't even know if I would trust getting on one of those sites. You know, of course, do what's best for you. I gotta blend this a little bit better. When I'm talking, doing my makeup, it's so hard to do my makeup right. Let me just try to wipe this off. I'll redo my lips here in a few. Let me put a little concealer, powder, and I'll do the whole process again. Okay, that's what we're gonna use. So basically that's it. That's my story. And of course there's obviously more details to the story, but I guess my whole point with like this little chat today was just kind of reminding you to know your value, ladies. You know, you are so valuable. You have so much to offer, and don't let anyone make you feel otherwise, that you need to do things that you're not willing to do to be able to keep a man. And and one other thing, when I met my husband, I made it clear to him that I'm not on the market to be, you know, like dating for 10 years before I decide I'm gonna get married. We make jokes about it all the time. He says I forced him to marry me, but he's just being silly, of course. But I told him, listen, if we're dating, and if we don't know within 1 year of spending our lives together, you know, dating and really getting to know each other, I told him, if after a year, if we feel like, oh, let's date another 2 years, 3 years, like if we just don't know that like we are each other's life partner, like we probably knew very early on. But I said, I don't want to date for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years. And I definitely don't want to be someone's fiance for 10 years, you know? And so what's funny is he surprised me, and he did propose within, it was actually before the year, I think, maybe a little after a year. But why date? Like if you're engaged to somebody for 6 years and they still don't want to marry you. And for me, I just felt like, look, I'm almost 40, not like 40's old. And even at 53, I don't feel like this is old. So even if you're in your 60s and you're just starting over dating again, I just felt like, why do I want to date and then be engaged to somebody? And I definitely didn't want to move in and live with each other. For me, I'm not saying that you can't do that if that's your choice, but for me, I just felt like I don't want to do any of that. Like if this is the one for me, then let's get married. We should definitely know within a year if we're, you know, want to spend our lives together. And you know, there's nothing wrong with dating somebody for a long time or being engaged for a long time, because when I was married before, I think I dated him for golly 5 or 6 years before we even got married. But for me, at that point in my life, I felt like, no, I'm not gonna do that. Like I don't want to waste my time. Like life is precious, time is precious. And I just don't want to be dating somebody for years before I know if they're the one. And I can tell you guys the story another time of how he proposed and all of that. And that's the story I'm talking about. His story is completely different than what really happened, but it's because he likes to joke about it, which, you know, is funny. So I did say that we would do like a Q&A. So if you have any questions that you want me to do another video on, or if you want my husband to answer some questions, he does have, some people were asking like financial questions, so I can have him chime in about that since he's really good with finances. If you have any questions whatsoever, leave me those questions or comments down below. If you want me to do another video another day with like answering a bunch of questions, I'm an open book, so you can really ask me anything. I don't hide any information. I know that people are like, you have fillers in your face and you're lying about it, or you've had facelifts. I've had none of that. These are my cheeks. I was born and raised with these cheeks. I do get Botox. I talk about it all the time, why I have to get the Botox. But to me, I feel like when you're with your girlfriends, which that's how I look at you guys, as we just hang out and talk, why would I lie and go secretly have filler and not tell you guys? So if you have questions about anything beauty related or life related, whatever, again, I'm not better than anyone. I don't have all the answers. I've made so many mistakes in my life, but I feel like now that I've gotten older, I feel like I do have a little bit of wisdom to share. And golly, if I had somebody my age, you know, when I was younger, making these dumb decisions and choices and not really knowing my value and being insecure and all of that, if I had somebody older, the me now talking to myself back then, I probably wouldn't have made so many bad decisions. But again, in life, I don't regret any of the silly mistakes I've made, and I don't regret anything because I don't feel like I would be who I am today if I hadn't have gone through that. So let me know if you guys like these girl talks. I know they're long and chatty, and half the time my makeup comes out crazy because it's very difficult for me to do 2 things at once, to talk and do makeup. My dad used to always say, you can't chew gum and walk at the same time. And now as a kid, I was like, what does that even mean? Now I totally get it because I just, for some reason, talking, doing makeup, I stop. As you can see, I stop the whole time to try to tell a story. But I have a lot of life things that I've gone through, especially some other things that are more kind of touching, more emotional for me to talk about. If anyone wants to hear of my story of having to go to rehab, why that happened, it's probably not even what you're thinking, but I'm more than happy to share that whole story of everything I went through then after my neck surgery. But I have a lot of things that maybe they could give some wisdom, some advice to some people. And so let me know. Leave a comment down below if you have any questions. And if this little chat helped you out at all, let me know. And again, I'm not saying that any of you have to have the same beliefs. You don't have to believe what I believe. I was just sharing my experience. I would never push my faith or push my beliefs on someone else. But of course, this is who I am, so I'm not gonna hide that about me. So anywho, I'll link everything down below. If you have any questions, there was nothing exciting or special about my makeup. This is just me getting ready for the day and thought I would just chat with you all. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. And again, you are beautiful, you are valuable, you are worthy. And that's something that you need to start telling yourself. Look in the mirror and tell yourself out loud if that's what you have to do. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And I hope you have a wonderful day.